You're live. Hare Krishna. Welcome to the Vraja-mandala Parikrama 2023. So we're going to have a kirtan first, and then we'll have the we'll speak something on this most auspicious Purnima, and then we'll have the Damodarastikam prayers at the end. Okay. Namo Vishnupadaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Shri Bhakti Vedanta Narayaniti Namine Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namo Vishnupadaya Gaura Prestaya Bhutale Srimad Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Namine Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Iti Namine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya. Is it all right? Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Oh Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Munindra Vrinda Vandite Triloka Shokahari Prashana Vaktra Pankaje Nikunja Vilasi Rajendra Mananandini Rajendra Sunu Sangate Gadakarishya Ramam Kripakatakshabhajanam Ashoshna Vrikshavallari Vitanamandapasite Pravalavala Pallava Pravanurangrigohomale Varapayasuratkare Prabhuta Sampadalaye Kadakarishya Shiyamam Kripakatakshabhajanam Ananga Ranga Mandala Prasanga Bangura Prabham Savitramam Digantamana Pattanai Dinantaram Vashikrita Pratita Nanda Nandane Kadakarishya Shiyamam Kripakatakshabhajanam Tadit Suvarna Champaka Pradipta Gaura Vigrahe Mukha Prabha Jyoti Saradendu Mandale Vichitra Chitra Sanchara Chakora Saravalochane Kada Karishyasi Yama Pripakataksha Bhajanam Madon Madhati Yogane Pramodamana Mandite Pravani Ragri Ranjite Premalasi Vandite Aranya Ganya Punjara Jakarma Keli Kovide Kada Karisya Siyama Ripakataksha Bhajanam Ashesha Hava Bhavadi Irahara Bhushite Prabhuta Sampadumba Kumba Kumba Kumbi Sustami Prashasta Mandahasya Chukna Purna Sokya Sagare Kada Karisya Siyama Kripakataksha Bhajanam Vinala Vala Vallari Taranga Ranga Dorlate Latagra Lasya Lolani Lalochana Vilokane Lalanunam Vilanmanukta Mohanonashriti Kadakarisya Shiyama Kripakataksha Bhajanam Sarvamadikum Chita Kiletya Jambu Kantade Sisutra Mangali Guna Siratnati Chalola Nila Kuntala Prasuna Gucha Gumfite Adakarisya Shiyama Kripakataksha Bhajanam Nitamba Bimba Lamba Mana Pushpa Mekalagune Prashasta Ratna Kinkini Kalapa Madhya Manjari Tarindra Sundar Dandika Varoha Soba Purke Kadakarisya Siyamam Kripakataksha Bhajanam Aneka Mantra Nada Manja Uparavavaskala Samaja Raja Hamsava Sanikvanati Gaurave Vilola Hema Gandhari Vidam Vicharu Chankame Kadakarisya Siyama Kripakataksha Bhajanam Nanta Koti Vishnu Lokanama Padmajarchite Vimadrija Pulomaja Virinja Javarapade Apara Siddhi Riddhi Tasadpadangulinake Kadakarisya Shiyama Kripakataksha Bhajanam Maheshwari Priyeshwari Swareshwari Sureshwari Triveda Bharateshwari Pramana Sasaneshwari Rameshwari Swameshwari Pramoda Kamaneshwari Rajeshwari Prajadipe Shiradike Namostute Iti Mamadbhutam Slavam Nishamya Vanu Nandini Karotu Santatam Janam Kripakataksha Bhajanam Avettataiva Sanchita Trirupa Karamanasana Avettata Brajendra Sunu Mandala Paveshanam Kadakarisya Siyamam Kripakataksha Bhajanam Namajanam Sucharu Vaktra Mandalam Sukarna Ratna Kundalam Sucharchitanga Chandanam Namami Nandanandanam Sudirga Netra Pankajam Siti Sikanda Murdajam Ananga Koti Mohanam namami nandanandanam sunasikagromoktikam swachanda danta pantikam navambudanga chikanam namami nandanandanam kareno vena ranjitam gati karendra ganjitam dukula pita shobhanam namami nandanandanam tribanga deha sundaram dukakuti sudakaram amulya ratna bhusanam namami nandanandanam Naranga Saurabham Puro Viraji Kostubham Spurat Srivatsalam Chanam Namami Nandanandanam Vrindavana Sunagaram Vilasanugavarsasam Surendra Garbhamochanam Namami Nandanandanam Rajangana Sunayakam Sada Sukha Pradayakam Jaganvana Pralobhanam Namami Nandanandanam Sri Nandanandanastakam Pratedya Shradhayanvita Taretvavam Hindustaram Taretarangri Yugmakam Namami Nandanandanam Namami Nandanandanam Namami Nandanandanam Namami Nandanandanam
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Guru Deva Jaya, 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 Guru Deva, Guru Deva Jaya, Guru Deva Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Hari Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Hari 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 Nitai Gaura Hari 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 Nitai Gaura Hari 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 Nitai Gaura Hari Jai Shri Shri Guru Garanga Ganhavika Giridhari Radha Madan Mohan Ju Ki Jai, Radha Vinod Bihari Ju Ki Jai, Radha Govinda Ji Ki Jai, Radha Vinod Bihari Ju Ki Jai, Radha Gopinath Ju Ki Jai, Jai Nitya Lila Prabhishta Om Asto Tarasarashi Shimad Srila Bhakti Narayan Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai, Jai Nitya Lila Prabhishta Om Asto Tarasarashi Shimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarasarashi Shimad Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Gosvami Maharaja ki jai.
Jai.
Tirobhava Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Gosvami Maharaja ki jai.
Jai.
Jai Jagat Guru Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarazara Shishimad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Jai Paramahamsa Mahabhagavat Srila Gaura Kishodas Babaji Maharaj ki jai.
Jai.
Jai Saptam Goswami Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki jai.
Jai.
Jai Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Jai Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan Gaudiya Brantaracharya ki jai. Jai Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur ki jai. Jai Narottam Srinivas Shyamananda Prabhu Treya ki jai. Jai Srila Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami ki jai. Jai Shri Rup Sanatan Shri Bhata Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Bhata Dasa Raghunath Sad Goswami Prabhu's ki jai. Jai Swarab Damodar Rai Ramananda Gauda Parsad ki jai. Namacharya Srila Hardas Thakur ki jai. Prem Siga Host Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Shri Gauda Bhakti ki jai. Shri Radha Krishna Shyam Radha Kund Giri Govardhana ki jai. Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Navadvip Dham ki jai. Ganga Jamuna ki jai. Brihat Mridanga ki jai. Sankirtan Yagya ki jai. Nam Bhajan ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Kartik Brat ki jai. Sarada Purnima ki jai. Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj Goswami ki jai. Kartik Brat ki jai. Anantakota Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Gauda Premanandi.
Hari
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 Bol. Om Agina Timirandasya Gyananjala Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Jena Tasmaya Shri Guruve Namaha Guruve Gaura Chandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarabhaktaya Namo Namaha Yam Prabhajantam Anapetyam Apetya Krityam Dvaipaino Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putreti Tammayatayo Taravo Benidustam Sarvabhutam Hridim Munimanatoshmi Anapita Chirim Chirat Kurunaivartino Kalo Samarapaitam Unnata Ujvala Rasam Swabhakti Shriyam Hari Purata Sundarata Dikatam Vasudipita Sudahridare Kandare Spuratu Vasachinandanaha Bhaktiya Vihina Aparada Lakshay Shiptas Chakarmadi Tarangamadye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapana Brinde Namaste Charana Ravindam Vajami Radham Aravinda Netram Smarami Radham Madhurashmitasyam Vadami Radham Karuna Paratram Tato Mamanasti Katyana Kapi Tavaivasmi Najivami Tvaivina Iti Vignaya Radhe Tvam Nayamam Charanantikam. And first of all, offering millions and millions of Dandavat pranams unto the lotus feet of my most beloved Gurudev, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om, Asto Tarazara Shishimad, Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And I'm offering the same again, millions and millions of times, unto the lotus feet of our most beloved Nitya Lila Pravishta Om, Asto Tarazara Shishimad, Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And on this most auspicious day, I'm offering all my prostrated Dandavat pranams unto our beloved Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarazara Shishimad Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Gosvami Maharaj, and to all our Rupanuga Guru Vargya and all the Vaishnava and Vaishnavi devotees of the Lord, my Dandavat pranams to all of you. So today, such an incredibly auspicious day, Sarada Purnima, and the day of our Sankalpa vow, preparing for our month Kartik Parikrama journey through the wonderful 12 forests of Vrindavan. And also today, of course, is the Tirobhava of our most beloved Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj. It's also the Tirobhava of Murari Gupta, the eternal associate of Sachinandan Gaurahari. So this Sarada Purnima just lends total auspiciousness to the atmosphere today. And we begin our program very early in the morning with my Gurudev. We would go to the Jamuna
Generally, it would be in front of Gopinath Bhavan. But I believe today the party is going to Keshigat, where there's perhaps more space. I'm not sure. But we are here today in Goldrum Dham in Navadvip, feeling great separation from Vrindavan Dham. So when we take our Sankalpa, our Gurudev, he would speak all the mantras and we would all respond. And then we would offer our Pushpanjali flowers into the Jamuna Devi, and all of us would be meditating on the glories of Radha and Krishna's pastimes to the extent of our ability. And finally, Srila Gurudev would always, every single time, turn to us and say, now, everyone say after me, I want to be a Palya Dasi of Srimati Radhika. Palya Dasi of Srimati Radhika. And he would make us say it 3 times. And none of us at that time really understood the purport of this. Even today, it's difficult for us to really appreciate the depth of that purport. But my Gurudev described, he was trying to give us a sanskar, an impression, perhaps for future births, that this impression would remain in the heart. And if we had that desire manifests everything. Whatever our desire is will manifest. So if we have even a little bit of that desire to have that desire to have that desire to be a maidservant of Sri Radhika, that is very different to having a desire to wanting to further our material sojourn here by enjoying our material senses in various ways. So this vow is the principal vow that we are all wanting to make today, that we want to beg our Guru Vargya and our Gurudev for the mercy to give me simply the desire to become a maidservant of Srimati Radhika. And we've discussed this many times in our Jaivadharma classes. We've talked about the speciality of the manjaris. And this, of course, is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come to gift the world with. Ragmag Bhakti Loke Karite Prajan. But he's come to give the world with specifically this Unnata Ujjvala Rasam Swa Bhakti Shriyam. Mahaprabhu has come to taste that Unnata Ujjvala Ras. But he's come to gift us with that Swa Bhakti Shriyam, Krishna's own Bhakti, which is Radhika, and the beauty of Krishna's beauty of Radhika are her maidservants, like the blossoms around the flowers, the leaves, etc. So this is giving the understanding that this is the gift of Mahaprabhu. So this month is also called Urja Brat. We take this Urja vow. Urja means very strong. It means having the capacity, having the strength. So I just said this verse, Unnata Ujjvala Ras. It means splendid, the most splendid, this Unnata. But Ujjvala is a part of that word of strength, Ujjvala. We say Ujjvala Nilamani, this incredible granta that Rupa Goswami has given us. So we're meditating on this potency of Radhika. This is Radhika's month. Kartik month was actually named after, or Kartikeya was named after the month of Kartik. So this is the name of this month, and it comes from the name of Radhika's mother, Kartikeya. So this potency, this strength, this uja, which Sri Radhika will give us. And if we want to be, if we actually have something of a desire to serve her rather than Krishna directly, and how do we cultivate that? By serving our Guru Vargya. All of our Guru Vargya have revealed their Manjari Swarups. They've all revealed their intrinsic potencies, their nature of service to Sri Radhika. today we're going to discuss Srila Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Maharaj and Srila Bhakti Vigyan, Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj. I'm looking at one disciple of Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj, so I was thinking Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj. But yes, he's revealed his identity as being Vinod Manjari. So if we simply meditate on our Guru Vargya and all these personalities, the 6 Goswamis and their spiritual identities, Krishnadas Kaviraj, Kasturi Manjari, we spoke the other day, and then Srinivas Shyamananda and Narottam, they've all revealed their personalities as maidservants of Sri Radhika. So if we're following carefully in this line, then our Guru Vargya has the potency to infuse within us this mood of seva to Sri Radhika. There's 5 types of sakis we've spoken many times. There's the sakis, the nitya sakis, the pran sakis, the priya sakis, and the priyanam sakis. And the nitya sakis and the pran sakis, they are manjaris, and they have this mood of tad tat bhav ichamayi. They want to only serve Sri Radhika. So this is our meditation while we're taking our Sankalpa vow. We're remembering all these truths about Sri Radhika. And how can I become a maidservant when I'm coming from such a degraded, fallen condition? How is my aspiration going to bear fruit that's being so high? If we have faith in the transcendental reality, that transcendental potency can infuse the heart of the sincere sadhak to actually have realization of these truths at some time, at some point in time. Initially in this birth, it's been described that bhav bhakti is attainable. Prem is not attainable, but bhav bhakti can be attained by the sincere sadhak. We've talked a lot about that in our classes, these 3 types of sadhan bhakti, bhav bhakti, and prema bhakti. Kleshagni, shubhada, moksha, lughutakrit, sudulabha, sandra ananda, visheshatma, prem, suryavams, Sri Krishna, akashani, chasa. These 3 divisions of bhakti. So by performing sincere sadhan, we can attain the fruit of bhav. This is possible. So today on this Sarada Purnima, Sarada Purnima, this is the first Ras Leela that Krishna performs in Vrindavan. What an auspicious day. Right at the very first day of Kartik, it's setting the whole mood and temperature and atmosphere for our Kartik meditation. So this Sarada Purnima, Krishna, he sees the sun. There's a beautiful verse in the first, in the 29th chapter, the first verse. It says, Bhagavan apitu ratri saradochvala malika vikshya rantum manaschakra yoga mayam upashrita. And this is saying that Sri Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, full in all opulences. This is the very beginning of the Ras Leela, the first verse. Yet upon seeing these autumn nights, scented with blossoming jasmine flowers, he turned his mind towards loving affairs. To fulfill his purpose, he employed his internal Shakti. So this is from chapter 29 in the 10th canto. This is the beginning of the Ras Leela pastimes. 5 chapters, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. Up to 33, these 5 chapters there. So Krishna, he uses his divine flute, this Venu, to call the gopis. The gopis, they previously were in a stage of Purvarag. This is described in the 21st chapter of the 10th canto. And in that Purvarag is when they're completely immersed in a separation mood and they're remembering Krishna. but their separation had reached a pitch. They had been seeing Krishna since their childhood, and their deepest desire was to engage in ras with him. But that hadn't happened yet. So they were just sitting on the edge, so to speak. And as soon as Krishna played his flute, indicating that now they should all immediately come to the forest and save his life. This is how my Gurudev has explained it. Krishna was requesting them to come and save his life, dance with him, be with him, that he was wanting them, he was lamenting for their company. This is the mood of the gopis all the way through. Their only focus of attention is to bring Krishna pleasure. It's described by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Their only meditation was to satisfy Krishna's calm. So Krishna is calling them on his flute, not calling them to enjoy with him, not that mood at all. Try to understand what my Gurudev was explaining. They ran in a mood of seva. Krishna is calling us because he wants us. He wants our association. He wants to dance with us. So this was the mood that the gopis left everything, totally. Their mood of seva. Understand the tattva of this aspect. Krishna is Shaktiman. Krishna is like the possessor of the energy. But the Shakti is the radiance that surrounds that Shaktiman. So the energy is totally dependent on the energetic Krishna, just like the sun orb. The sun's rays are completely dependent on the sun. So the sun's rays, the illumination of the sun, are like the gopis. They're completely dependent on Krishna for everything. Shri Radhika is totally dependent on Krishna in tattva vichar. But when it comes across a certain line into rasa vichar, then we understand how the Shakti actually has the potency to control the Shaktiman. And this is the dynamic, we can say. This is the potency of all the gopis. They call this, we have the, what is it, Samanjasa? And the gopis? Samartharati. This Samartharati of the gopis has the ability to control Krishna. It has the ability to control Krishna. So, because of their love, but it began with their mood of seva. They ran to serve Krishna and they left everything behind. They left not only their material situation, but they left their shame. They left their shyness. They left their adherence to Dharma completely, left everything behind. A young girl leaving her Dharma behind, this is like leaving her life behind. They left everything. Yama, Bhajan, Durja, Geha, Shrinkala. They left everything. And when they arrived in Krishna's presence, what did Krishna do? He said, "Oh, you young girls, why have you come here? Yes, the forest is so beautiful tonight in Vrindavan and the moon is so splendid, but you have left your homes. This is not correct for young girls to do. Now you should go back to your homes and families." And the gopis were completely devastated. This is called the Pranaya Geet. So this comes after Krishna has called them. Krishna is wanting to see their total greed, their total enthusiasm, to give up everything materially, completely, and just engage in that transcendental activity of dancing with him. So in order to do this, he takes the gopis through this purification where they feel so distressed, even though they're in the very presence of Krishna. This Pranaya Geet is remarkable because they're in the presence of Krishna and yet they're also feeling impending separation at the same time. So it's a remarkable Geet in the Bhagavatam. In the other Geets, actually Krishna is not there. But in this Gita, the Pranaya Gita, Krishna is there physically, and they're begging him. The gopis feel that they're not good enough for Krishna's love. They've just given up everything completely, totally, and run to the forest to satisfy his calm. And yet now they're not feeling good enough. This feeling of not feeling good enough, what's that going to do? It's going to inspire an even deeper mood of affection and attraction to Krishna, actually. They had so much attraction previously, but that's going to become even deeper. So this is the transcendental nature of Brajendrananda and Shyam Sundar. He's taking them even deeper within themselves, and they counter Krishna's directives so nicely. They say, well, actually, yes, we must follow our guru first. This is the principal teachings of the Vedas. And you have called us by your flute. And we understand by previously the various beautiful glances that you gave to us through so many years previously, that you desire to be with us. So according to Guru, we must stay here. Our husbands, we cannot even think of them anymore. So then Krishna, in this Pranaya Gita, he's defeated by the brilliant words of the gopis. The gopis are so brilliant, and they defeat Krishna. It was like Krishna was playing a game with them, in a sense, because he was saying like two things at the same time. But they defeated him. So when Krishna is defeated in the arena of love, Krishna is so satisfied. And then the ras can begin. And this is all happening today on Sarada Purnima, on the first day of Kartik. This is how auspicious this day is. And then, of course, when they begin the ras, they all beautifully arrange themselves and they begin dancing. But then we know the pastime. After Krishna, he manifests between each gopi. Each gopi is just seeing Krishna is in front of me. The gopis don't see that Krishna is actually dancing with all of the gopis simultaneously. They don't see that. They just see that Krishna is dancing with me. And when they turn around, Krishna is actually dancing with 300 billion other gopis. And then when they turn back, there's Krishna again. So Krishna is moving at a speed of lightning. It's described that he doesn't expand himself. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that would be Aishwarya if Krishna expanded himself. He goes as fast as if you have a piece of rope with a glowing light on the end and you spin it around. It becomes a complete circle of light. So Krishna is a single person and he's dancing like this. But then, and all the gopis, of course, they're feeling this Saubhagyavati. They're feeling completely the most fortunate ladies in the universe. And they are. But they're feeling that sense of pride comes in their hearts. And also, simultaneously, Radhika is feeling that something is not correct because they're not honoring me sufficiently. She's not thinking like that, but she knows underneath that they all have manifested from her. They all her Kaya Vyuha. And Radhika should be established as the queen of the ras to satisfy Krishna completely. Everything is for the satisfaction of Krishna. When Radhika is honored sufficiently, then Krishna will be satisfied. So Radhika leaves. And as soon as Radhika leaves, the Ras Leela has no more pleasure for Krishna. Radhika has left, so Krishna leaves also. And then the gopis are in such dire separation moods. So we get the dynamic of meeting and separation right in these very first chapters. And all this is happening on this day of Sarada Purnima. And then we know the pastime, how Krishna, he meets Radharani in Sringara Vat, decorates her. The gopis, they catch up. And because Radhika, after some time, she begins to miss her gopis. And the gopis, they're searching for who is this other Saki who has taken Krishna, this beautiful verse, Anaya Radhito Nunam, Bhagavan Hare Ishvara, that who is this gopi that Krishna has taken to a secret place? And then when they find her footprints, they follow carefully. And then, of course, Radhika, she's been decorated nicely by Krishna, and they're walking through the forest. And then finally, Radhika is aware that the gopis are in such separation, searching for her. So she wants actually the gopis to catch up, but Krishna knows if the gopis catch up, this will be difficult for me. If they see me with Radhika in this condition, this is not going to make the right chemistry, so to speak, to continue our Ras Leela. So he says to Radhika, do you want to keep walking or do you want to come to a flower bed? And that time Radhika says, I don't mind. You can take me either way. You can take me to a flower bed or we can keep on walking. And then at that time, Radhika's mood has come down from the controlling heroine, that's Swadhina Bhartika, to a mood of Dakshin Bhav, submissive. And Krishna was already submissive. So now both the moods have become submissive. So this is not really compatible. There's no waves on this ocean of the Sthai Bhav because they both become the same. So then Krishna, he says, well, just sit on my shoulder. Radhika goes to sit on his shoulder and then Krishna disappears. And then Radhika, her separation is so extreme at that point because previously her union had been so extreme. So when you get these extremities of meeting and separation, just like with the gopis previously, they were dancing with Krishna. So their separation was also so excruciating for them. This is the dynamic of the Ras Leela, this meeting and separation. All of Krishna's pastimes in Braj revolve around this appreciation of the meeting and separation. And of course, when all the gopis catch up with Radhika, she's in such a high separation mood. She cries out, Hey Nata Ramana Prishta, Kwasi Kwasi Mahapuja, Dasyaste Kripamayame, Sake Sanidim, Sake Darshaya Sanidim. Oh, a mighty armed one, show yourself to this Saki, or this Saki will lament, leave her body practically. So the Sakis, they catch up with Radhika and they're aware of her total separation mood, and then they realize their own feelings of separation pale in front of Radhika's separation. When they see the height of her separation moods, then they realize that Radhika is actually the most exalted devotee. She was the one that Krishna took personally out of all of us. She was the one. So at this point, Radhika, in the minds of all the Sakis now, all the different groups, the Tatashta, the Surit, and the Vipaksh, they all become united in support of Sri Radhika. All the politics, so to speak, that have abounded amongst all they all become unified in their glorification of Radhika. And then, of course, they have their beautiful lament of the Gopi Geet on the bank of the Jamuna. So all this is taking place today on Sarada Purnima. So this pastime we will hear repeatedly throughout the month in different aspects of it, different sections of it and so on. But I've just spoken a little bit about it this evening just to give us an idea of the speciality of the meeting and the separation. Because when they go into their separation mood of the Gopi Geet, this Jayati Te Dikam Janmana Braja Shrayata Indira Shashvadatrahi Daita Drishyatam Dikshutavakas Vaitrita Shavastvam Vichinvate. This beautiful lament of the gopis is the first Sankirtan ever in existence, and it has the effect of bringing Krishna. This pierces Krishna's heart when he hears this, and then he returns to the gopis, and he returns in a very humble mood with a cloth around his neck. He's saying, Na pariyeham niravadya samyujam svasaru krityam vibhudisapicha, and he's begging the gopis that he cannot repay them for the amount of affection they have demonstrated towards him. And the gopis' separation moods are completely tranquilized. They're completely pacified at that moment. when Krishna returns to them. So all this is taking place beginning today. It starts on this Sarada Purnima. And also there are so many other pastimes in the month of Kartik that take place. My Gurudev describes that Aristasura was killed by Krishna during the month of Kartik. And as a consequence of that, the wonderful Radha Kund and Shama Kund were manifested in this month of Kartik, because we celebrate Bahulastami in the month of Kartik. And also the demon Shankasura, he was also killed, and his jewel was taken by Krishna in this month. My Gurudev also describes that Kamsa was killed in this month. Akrura arrives and takes Krishna to Mathura and kills Kamsa. And what else? Many other pastimes. Huh? Oh, of course. The Damodar Leela. The Damodar Leela is performed in this month. In this month, every day, we chant the beautiful, sacred Damodar Astakam. And we will go through the Damodar Astakam on our rest days, on our days off. We will discuss all the different verses all the way through of the Damodar Astakam. So by the time Kartik has completed, we will have gone through all of the 8 verses very carefully. So we sing this Damodar Astakam in our mat twice a day, and we offer lamp also twice a day. So this is just a remarkable prayer that Satyabrat Muni manifested from his heart, that has Vedavyas, he took this Damodar Astakam and he included it in the Padma Purana. And these Puranic Shastras are eternal. So this Damodar Astakam is actually eternal. It's an eternal Astakam. And every single year we go through it. And I've heard my Gurudev perhaps on 17 or 18, 19 different occasions speaking on these 8 verses. Every day he'll speak on one verse, for 8 days. And he never is repeating himself. It's so much ever fresh, which is an indication of its absolute transcendental nature. This Damodar Astakam is totally transcendental. It's like a ladder, because it starts off with somewhat Aishwarya, Namam Ishwaram Satchit Ananda Rupam. It's somewhat Aishwarya, but it culminates in Sri Radhika. The last verse is culminating in taking shelter of Sri Radhika. So it goes through the 8 verses like a ladder. And the sadhaks, they love to go through this regularly. Our life is very short. We need every support we can to actually reach this consciousness of transcendence. And this Damodar Astakam is so powerful. And if it's chanted during the month of Kartik, this is the point, during the month of Kartik, this Urja Brat, when it's so powerful, all this power is invested into this month. And it's also the month of Niyama Seva. We can take our vows, our various vows, and we can perform more seva in this month, because everything we do in this month in connection with our sadhana bhakti, with our bhajan, or residing in the dham, or our relationships with devotees, can be increased 1,000-fold by performing it nicely. This month has that potency to offer that, to gift that. So the sadhak is very attentive to the gifts that can be offered throughout this whole month, and he becomes very serious in his sadhana bhajan and his contemplation on Krishna's pastimes. And in particular, my Gurudev would always say, and don't complain and don't criticize about anybody, because when we're pointing the finger at someone, we've got 3 pointing back at us. So this is what is most going to break any mercy that will come to us if we indulge in any form of criticism whatsoever. So we must be but always the devotee should be attentive to that, because Krishna, he loves all his devotees. But why should the devotees tend to see the Maya in if they're seeing the Maya in somebody else, it means that Maya is reflecting from their heart into somebody else that they're aware of, that they're witnessing. So they should appreciate their own deficiencies and not be looking at someone else's faults, etc. So this month of Kartik we celebrate very seriously, and we've been talking about it for the last few weeks actually in the different classes. And today, this day has manifested, and this speciality, I've talked a little bit about Saradiya Ras. And during this Saradiya Ras, right at the very beginning, actually in this Pranaya Geet, is when our most beloved Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj chose to leave this world and join the apricot pastimes. He left this world, it's described, at about 6:15 when the Sandhya Aarti was going on. My Gurudev described that he was in a very delicate condition, and all the devotees had gathered, and they thought he would probably leave his body. That's what was in their minds. He wasn't an old man. I think he was only 68 or something like that. Not so old, but he was very sick, and he was reaching the end of his time, and everyone intuitively understood that. So my Gurudev describes that all day, from early morning, they had many beautiful kirtans were being sung for his pleasure, all morning and in the afternoon also, and in the evening also. And then my Gurudev describes in great detail how all the devotees were there, and Param Gurudev, Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj, he took a picture of his beloved Gurudev, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, and placed him on his chest. And then he was chanting verbally, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. And then he stopped chanting and left this world while he was actually chanting. And my Gurudev makes a point of this, that many times people, their voice, they can't speak at the time of death, or their minds become so bewildered because they know that they're actually leaving this world. But Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj was so controlled, and he was so like present for his own departure, that he was able to chant the Hare Krishna mantra. We see from his very birth, he took his birth in 1898, I think it was. Check that. 1898. And his mother describes that not long after a saintly person came and gave his mother a sweet while Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj was in the womb of his mother. And his mother took that sweet. And Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj, he says, I was born with this mood of renunciation because my mother accepted that Mahaprasad when I was in her womb. So from that very moment, from that time in the womb, so this is a Nitya Siddha Parika. This is how they engage in their activities in this world. So he was an exceptional child, and there's an incredible story that we hear every year, how a huge bird, his mother had left him in a cloth, just sort of put the cloth over it, and a huge bird came down and picked up the baby and flew away. And all the residents of the village became completely panicked, because they took the baby high in the sky. And then, to their amazement, the bird brought the baby back right close to the next spot and carefully placed it back again, and then flew away. And the villagers and the mother and father, of course, were just like amazed that this had actually happened to this child. So there are many beautiful pastimes that took place during his childhood. But he was brought by two of his aunties, his mother's sisters, to Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati in 1918. This means he was 20 years old when he came to see Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati for the first time. And his two aunties, Sarojini Didi, or Dasi, Sarojini Dasi, because she was initiated by Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati later, and Priyatma. She was an aunt, but we don't hear so much about her because she left her body quite soon afterwards. We hear mostly about Sarojini Dasi. And when as soon as Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj came into the presence of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, he immediately understood in that very instant, this is my eternal spiritual master. He was only a young man, 20 years old. But at that point, he dedicated his entire life from that time. This was in 1918. He was practically one of the very first disciples to come to Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, because there's the famous conversation when Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, he's telling Sarojini Dasi, oh, in the future, I will have many, many mats. I will have 64 mats in India and so many followers actually in the future. He was telling her about because at that time he had nothing. And Sarojini looked at him and said, well, Maharaj, you have absolutely nothing now. You can't even afford, you have to go on bhiksha for every meal you take. And they said, how will you possibly arrange all this? And at that time, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati said, our Vinod Bihari, he will do everything. So Vinod Bihari was his name at that time. That was his name when he came. And this is what Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, he could see in his meditation, that this person will support me. This person, Vinod Bihari, was totally fearless. Exactly the same quality as Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati himself had. If your faith is so impeccable and your nishta is so complete and full, then what in the world could intimidate you? Just like we hear of Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Bhakta. His faith was so extreme that his nishta, he could be thrown off a mountaintop or anything. He knew that Krishna, whatever Krishna wanted to do, Krishna will do. If Krishna saves me, he saves me. If he doesn't save me, he doesn't save me. So that real true nishta, you have absolute faith in the potency of the Lord. So Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj, or Vinod Bihari, he had this mood that he was inspired from Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati with this fearlessness, who was inspired by his divine father, Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur. So this current of fearlessness comes through, because we see that same current was actually passed on to my Gurudev, Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Maharaj. That same fearlessness was passed into their hearts, and also into the heart of Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. They had the same mood, the same fearless mood. So initially, there was practically no mats, there was nothing, basically. So with the great energy and activities of Vinod Bihari, he helped, for example, he acquired the land that we have today at Swananda Sukata Kunj, just up the road here. This property had fallen into the hands of the Muslims. This was actually Bhaktivinoda Thakur's property. And Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, he just expressed the desire publicly that he wanted to reclaim that land. And immediately, Vinod Bihari, always meditating on the desire of his beloved Gurudev, went and arranged for that land to again come into the name of the Chaitanya Mat. Srila Vinod Bihari, Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj, when he was residing in his family estate, his father was a zamindar, who's a wealthy man, and he would have to deal with all the residents of his land, etc. So he was familiar with how to deal with people and how to get the money that was needed, taxes, etc., from all the people. So he's familiar with management of properties, etc. So he had that mood. My Gurudev often says that he himself, Srila Narayan Maharaj, doesn't have any logic or rationale with him. But my Gurudev, he says, had so much. And he says, just like he was talking to us, just like your Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, he also had so much managerial or logic ability to actually utilize all Krishna's energy to work in the material world and manifest these remarkable temples, etc. So he acquired that land at Swananda Sukata Kunj. And when even Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, his Guru Maharaj, Srila Gokishore Das Babaji, had departed this world on the other side of the Ganga, and he was placed in Samadhi at near the place of Jagannath Das Babaji. His Samadhi was originally there, and the Ganga came very, very close to flooding it, and the Ganga, it was seen, was actually going to completely inundate the Samadhi that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had already placed his beloved Gurudev in. So he also requested at that time that Vinod Bihari can manage something. So Vinod Bihari, somehow or other, I mean, that was a remarkable undertaking, to take the entire Samadhi out of the ground. He placed it on 2 boats and they pulled it across the Ganga. And then they took the Samadhi, huge Samadhi. They didn't have machines and so on in those days, just donkeys and whatever, horses. And they managed to take it to where the Chaitanya Mat is today. And they placed his Samadhi right there next to the Radhakund that's in the Chaitanya Mat today, after the Yoga Pit there. So this is another great accomplishment of Srila Vinod Bihari. And also we know the story then for the Yoga Pit itself had also been occupied by the Muslims, because the Muslims are very plentiful here. And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur understood that this is the Yoga Pit, but it was inhabited by Muslims and so on. So they'd made a graveyard there. So again, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he wanted to reclaim this property. So Vinod Bihari, he got about 40 men one night, and they went there secretly and they exhumed all the graves of the Muslims and threw them into the Ganga, and they arranged the whole area like it was an ancient park. They got huge, like 30, 40-foot trees. They brought them in, and they planted these huge trees to make it look as if they'd been there for a long time. And they planted all fresh flowers and fresh vines, and they made the whole graveyard look like it had been a garden for generations. And then they occupied it with a small temple. Immediately they had a small building that they made like a temple. And then, of course, the next day, the Muslims, they all called the police, and the police came. They said, well, this has been here for years, you know, what are you talking about? This was yours. And they could bring no case against him. So in that way, Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaja was able to demonstrate his remarkable intelligence. He was given the name by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati of Kirti Ratna. Kirti means activities, and Ratna means jewel. He was a jewel of activities, because he could perform all these activities that would almost be beyond human capacity. He was able to do that with the potency of his Gurudev and our Guru Vargya and his immense nishta. He was able to perform incredible, extraordinary activities in support of his Gurudev. So throughout his life, he was able to help manifest the entire Gaudiya Mat as we have it today. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was the voice piece, was inspiring all these amazing young men who came to him and giving them great Guru Nishta within their hearts and making them understand fully the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But they also had to be accommodated, mutts had to be built, they had to be fed, so many details had to be attended to, and this was all on the head of Vinod Bihari. Vinod Bihari was doing all of this work. Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj, he tells a story that when he first came to the mutt, he saw Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj, or Vinod Bihari. He was just wearing white at that time, and he was sitting at a desk, at a table outside in the sun, and he had his feet on the table, and he was just sitting and he was chanting, and many sannyasis were coming and bowing down to him and acknowledging him. And Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj was kind of like amazed. Why are these sannyasis all offering to this man dressed in white? He just looks like a grihasta. And then he inquired later, oh, this is Vinod Bihari. He's the manager of everything. So even the sannyasis, they had the preaching voice, but they didn't have the ability to actually manifest the support that the preaching needed. There's many support things, the prasadam distribution, etc., the building of ashrams, etc., all of this, and especially the court cases, because they had many court cases filed against them at the time, because Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was reclaiming his own properties or his properties from his father. And many times Srila Binod Bihari was in the court fighting. Even later on, when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati left this world, of course there was great devastation when, I think it's 1935, when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati left this world. No, 1937. 1937, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati left this world. And it's quite remarkable, the history, how everything was so much on fire, so to speak, while Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was present. But as soon as he departed, the devotees began fighting with each other. And there were two camps. There was Ananta Vasudeva, and there was Bhakti Vilas Tirtha Maharaj. But previously he was, what's his name? Kunja Bihari. So there was Kunja Bihari and Ananta Vasudeva. And they were quite different personalities. Both of them had rendered such extreme service to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati would conclude his lectures and he turned to Ananta Vasudeva and said, "What shall we do now? What shall we say now? What shall we sing now?" And Ananta Vasudeva was brilliant mridanga player, brilliant orator, speaker, and kirtaniya. And he immediately would knew exactly which kirtan to sing and which topic to actually begin to speak on after Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. So he would carry the remaining program through expertly. So, but he was very much like a Brahmin. And Kunja Bihari, originally he was working in a post office, and he gave all his savings to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati when they had nothing. So this was like a huge donation at the time. And then he took over helping with the management of the Gaudiya Math. And he did so much seva with arranging for the devotees and building this Chaitanya Math and arranging the dioramas, so many aspects that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati wanted. So they were both very, very powerful men in their own rights. But when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati left, they couldn't agree. One was more brahminical than the other. The other was more like hands-on sevak type of mood. So they began to go through the courts. Ananta Vasudeva was saying, no, these properties like in Calcutta, Bagh Bazar, etc. belong to me. And Kunja Bihari say, no. Anyway, they fought in the courts for 2 or 3 years, 4 years. This went through, and this was devastating all the devotees. And it's quite remarkable that personalities like Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj, like Pramod Puri Maharaj, like our Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and especially Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj, they all left the Gaudiya Math. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he departed this world in 1937. Srila Bhakti, he was still Binod Bihari at that time. He left the Math in 1939, 2 years later. Now, can you imagine how difficult that must have been at the time? He'd come as a young boy of 20 years old, given his whole life to serving in the Math. He'd procured so many properties and so on for his Gurudev. He'd done so much seva, and now he was walking away from the Math because it wasn't conducive for his bhakti. This court cases and this argument and so on was not healthy for the bhakti. And Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj thought the same thing. Srila Daita Madhav Maharaj, he also thought the same thing. And it's very interesting to see historically where the current of Rag Marg moved. Because today, even, most of those personalities within the Chaitanya Math, they don't talk a lot about Rag Marg or Sri Radhika. They don't make her prominent in their presentations. And yet all those personalities who left, they all do. So just an interesting point, especially Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj. So Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj at that time, he acquired the property of the Devananda Gaudiya Math at that time, 1939, and he wasn't a sannyas at that time. But he had one dream, and his guru... Oh, I missed out the most important seva that he did while his Gurudev was on the planet. The most amazing service when at Paramatala during the Parikrama, the local Parikrama, they had been incited by the Smarta Brahmins to actually kill Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. In Bengal, this kind of thing goes on regularly. It happens. They get very excited and they're ready to kill. They were inspired by the Brahmanas, the Smarta Brahmins, to do like this because the teachings of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati was taking away their paisa, taking away their livelihood, because he was exposing them for the lack of bhakti that they had, and it was revealing the corruption and the cheating that they were doing to the people. So because of his strong, heavy preaching, all the Smarta Brahmanas were very angry and disturbed with Srila Bhakti Siddhanta. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati is like a man from transcendental realm, and he was exposing all these cheaters. So they incited the crowd and told them to throw bottles and stones, and as soon as Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati would crash, then they would kill him. And so this happened right in the middle of the Navadvip Parikrama. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, at that time, he had engaged an elephant to carry the deities of the kirtan, of the Parikrama. His Parikramas were enormous. They had like hundreds of thousands of yatris, pilgrims on the Parikramas. And this riot began at Paramatala. And they all began throwing stones and bottles. And instantly, amazingly, as if he'd been divinely told, Srila Binod Bihari at that time knew the danger, the absolute danger of the situation. They were trying to kill Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. So immediately, without hesitation, he grabbed his Guru Maharaj and quickly pulled him in to a house that they actually knew. They were friends of the devotees. And immediately, without any hesitation, told Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati to give him his red cloth, because they were about the same size. They were approximately the same size. Then Srila Binod Bihari, he put on the sannyas dress, and Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati put on the white cloth. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati went out one back door with a few devotees and easily got back to Mayapur. But Srila Binod Bihari, he went out the front. And the police had been called, of course, but they had already been bribed to let it go for a long time until he was dead. And then they saw who they thought was Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. But Srila Binod Bihari was very much active in moving around at that time, and he managed to, he knew actually some of the policemen there, and then he could explain the situation, that they were trying to kill him, and they all understood. And then the police, somehow or other, they settled the crowd and the whole thing became diffused. But this is a tremendous demonstration of the absolute nishta. Binod Bihari, Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaja, was ready to give up his life directly for his beloved Gurudev at that time, without hesitation. If there had been a moment wasted, then he would have been killed. But because of his dedicated thought and desire to please his Gurudev at every moment. So when his beloved Gurudev left this world, and when Srila Binod Bihari had left the Mutt in 1939, as we've described, he'd acquired the Devananda property. And at that time, his brother, Alomi Maharaj, he was also initiated by Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. He decided to take off his red cloth. This was when there was chaos in the Gaudiya Math. He decided to take off his red cloth, that it wasn't of value. It was better to preach and just do bhajan and not to go out on Harinam Sankirtan, that they shouldn't go out on Sankirtan. Why are they going out on Sankirtan? They should sit in the temple and just do chanting and just be like Babaji.
And no Parikrama.
Huh?
And no Parikrama.
And no Parikrama. Yes, this was Alomi Maharaj. And this was the brother of Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj. So Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj, he could not tolerate the slightest deviation to the instructions of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. And he immediately filed a court case against his own brother. And he arranged to take him to court. And Srila Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Maharaj tells this story beautifully. He was there taking all the notes and documents, etc., doing all the attending in the court. And everything was set. And then on the very day of the judgment, Alomi Maharaj in saffron now, he changed onto saffron. He came with a Sankirtan party and arrived at the court case, at the court door, the courthouse. And the judge said, well, where is your case? He's already in saffron. He's performing Harinam Sankirtan. So how can you make a case against him? So then immediately, Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj, he dropped the case. And then there were others there who were saying, oh, you've been defeated. But he said, of course not. My objective was to put him in saffron and have him do the Harinam Sankirtan. And that was achieved. So the goal was achieved. And he was able to, Lomi Maharaj maintained his saffron then for the rest of his life. And they would also, but that was the strength, the nishta of Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava. He took this name, Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj, from Srila Bhakti Rakshak Srila Maharaj. When he realized in 1939, when he got to that house in Koladvip, and he was developing that temple there, he realized that he had to take this sannyas ashram to have the required potency to erect the mat and to solicit all the young men and so on to join him. So he had an internal revelation from his Guru Maharaj to take that sannyas. And then he went to Srila Bhakti Rakshak Srila Maharaj and he took the name Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj from Srila Bhakti. Srila Bhakti Rakshak Srila Maharaj was like the most senior. All the Vaishnavas all looked up to him because he was really most erudite and he was very mature in years also. So all the devotees had great respect. Actually, in those times it's described, we read the history, the respectful behavior between all these personalities was really remarkable. But in particular, in Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj's Devananda Gaudiya Math, we can appreciate the potency of it by his disciples. And his three principal disciples, Srila Bhaktivedanta Vamana Maharaj, Srila Bhaktivedanta Trivikrama Maharaj, and Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Maharaj. They were the first sannyasis that Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj made in his temple. And they performed so much seva. And we know the glories of Srila Vamana Maharaj. We will have his appearance day in the month of, or disappearance day rather, in the month of Kartik, as well as Srila Bhaktivedanta Trivikrama Maharaj. Both of their disappearance days will be in this month of Kartik. So we can see the caliber of Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj directly, if we never met Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj, reflected in the hearts of these three remarkable personalities. Srila Vamana Maharaj is such an incredible personality, and he came to the mat when he was only like 8 years old, and his knowledge of Shastra is so profound. And Srila Bhaktivedanta Trivikrama Maharaj, his nature and sublime warmth and courage and acuteness to appreciate situations was seen in that. And of course, we know the glories of my beloved Gurudev Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Maharaj, how he took the whole level, so to speak, of the Harikatha straight directly into the kunj of Sri Radhika and Krishna. Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj had laid all the foundation, but it was Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Maharaj who actually took the banner of Rag Marg very, very strongly out into the world. So this was his contribution. So we see that in the life of this personality, and my Gurudev, every year he would speak very beautifully for a little while, but it was always very hard for him to speak because he would become so emotional each time when he was describing the departure of his Gurudev. So we can always appreciate the speciality of these great personalities with how much attachment and feelings they have for their Gurudev. It's always the glorification that they do of their Gurudev. It's like Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Maharaj. He glorifies his Gurudev so extensively. And Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj glorified his Gurudev so extensively. He writes this beautiful Satchitanayana Astakam, this beautiful Astakam that we have in the, we sing regularly, glorifying and Mahaprabhu. Shri, what's his Radha Chinta Niveshanam Yasya Shanti Vilopina Shri Krishna Charanam Vande Radha Lingitam Vigraham. This beautiful Astakam that Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj, he writes about how Krishna in his extreme mood of separation turned that like a molten gold color, the color of Mahaprabhu. This is who is Mahaprabhu. And he also writes our Mangalarti song that we sing, Mangalarshi Guru Gora, the song that we sing every day in his mats. He also wrote this song. So even though he didn't always present himself as the most erudite person, but actually he was the most erudite. It would never be seen regularly by the devotees when he was on the planet that he was spending so much time reading or studying. But intuitively, he knew all the granthas. Once a sannyasi came and was criticizing him, why have you got this book, Ujjwala Nilmani, in your room? And Srila Bhakti, Srila Vinod Bihari at that time, he didn't say anything. And then Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was there, and he said, to this sannyasi, you can ask him any question you like. So this sannyasi walked in very proudly and asked Vinod Bihari one question about Rasa Tattva. And Vinod Bihari was so eloquent and fluent, this sannyasi was totally silenced. And it was understood just how erudite, actually, Vinod Bihari was. How can you write these beautiful astakams? How can you do so much seva? He was not an ordinary person. He was not an ordinary mortal at all. Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj was the most extreme transcendental sevak of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. So his whole life he dedicated. When he was serving Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, many times he would hire entire bogies of trains. He would hire like 4 or 5 coaches of trains, and he would take huge Parikrama parties down to the South India, across to Dwarka, in different places in India, to Uttarakhand in the north, and he would take thousands of pilgrims on Parikrama. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was so happy with this dedicated service. He never stopped his service his whole life. So today we're really remembering deeply this exceptional personality and his loving nature. He was like a thunderbolt with those who needed thunderbolt treatment, and he was like a rose with those who were receptive to rose-like treatment. So he had all these qualities that he gave entirely in the hand of his Gurudev, and he spent his whole life from such an early age just dedicated service to his Guru. He knew his Gurudev's inner intention. He knew his Gurudev's mind and heart, that his Gurudev wanted to relieve the conditioned souls of their suffering one way or another. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was the first one to erect mats, was the first one to translate his father's teachings of all the bhajans, etc., into the mat, and to arrange for the mat programs, etc. And he was the first one to begin the institution of the Gaudiya mat. So it needed a lot of energy to actually do that. And Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj was greatly responsible for that. So this Gaudiya mat that we have today is grateful for Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj's tremendous sacrifice and service and dedication and more than anything, extreme love towards his Gurudev. It's only because of this quality of love that these types of activities can ever manifest. When this Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he inspired the loving hearts of so many remarkable personalities. We read the different personalities, and Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj was definitely amongst those who were inspired fully into the realm of transcendence by the mercy of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. So, Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj Goswami Ki Jai. And today, this Sarada Purnima, this Sankalpa, we take our vow, and we all should take vows today of some sort. We can think of many different ideas to increase our sadhana bhakti, and remember the potency and strength of Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj, and try to imbibe the depth of his Guru Nishta. Guru Nishta is not a static state of consciousness, it's an ecstatic state of consciousness. It's not something, oh yes, I have Guru Nishta, that's it. It's always ongoing, it's always increasing. Otherwise, it's like love itself. Love itself is not static, it's ecstatic, it's always growing. That's the nature of pure love. So the nature of pure Nishta is it's always expanding. How can I fulfill the mano bhishtam of my Guru more and more? And if I think of the example of Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj today in particular, then those moods and those qualities, if we just appreciate them, then something may develop within our heart by the mercy of Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaj. So today I'm begging deeply that he will bestow his mercy upon me to have a particle of the Shraddha, the Nishta, the faith that he exemplified towards his most beloved Gurudev. So Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Gosvami Maharaj Ki Jai, Sarada Purnima Ki Jai, Niyama Seva Ki Jai, Kartik Brat Ki Jai, Damodar Leela Ki Jai. We will discuss Damodar Leela so much during this month, so I won't discuss that now. Murari Gupta, his Tirobhava today, and Murari Gupta was actually a remarkable personality, and he's a Nityasiddha Parika, and he was like a Ram Bhakta previously, and because there's a pastime where he Mahaprabhu says this is an incarnation of Hanuman, was Murari Gupta, an incarnation of Hanuman. And one time with Mahaprabhu, he came in and he offered his Dandavat pranams to Mahaprabhu and not to Nityananda. And Mahaprabhu cautioned, no, you have made aparad now. And Murari Gupta couldn't understand what he'd done. And that night he had a dream, and it was revealed in the dream the glories and speciality of Nityananda Prabhu. And then the next day he came straight into the assembly and went straight to Nityananda and offered Dandavats. And Mahaprabhu was very, very happy that he'd understood. But there's one description that when Murari Gupta first came to Puri from Navadvip, after Mahaprabhu had taken the renounced order, he came to Puri, and this demonstrates his nature and character, that Mahaprabhu immediately saw him and wanted to embrace him. And Murari Gupta ran away. No, you don't touch this body, I'm all dirty, you know. And Mahaprabhu, he ran, chased him. And Murari Gupta was saying at that time, I'm not even a devotee. You can't embrace me like this. So Murari Gupta, we understand from this pastime, was he had this tremendous humility and quality of humility that he had. So Murari Gupta, I don't know a lot about him.
Story about how he
was going to commit suicide, and he took up Krishna. Yeah, there was I remember something, and he had decided that he couldn't leave Ram. So he was going to take his own life. So he found a sharp knife and he placed it under his pillow. And he was planning to take his own life because he couldn't adjust to Mahaprabhu and Krishna conception. And Mahaprabhu knew immediately and told him, that knife under your pillow, go and get it and bring it to me. And Murari Gupta had to go and he gave that knife to Mahaprabhu and he said, this is not the path. You've sold your head at the feet of Ram. That's okay. You stay like that, but understand the entire tattva and ontology. And I can't remember the story, so I can't say it completely.
This Murari is same as Sharanga Murari, that the guru and disciple that we go to is different. Murari.
Yes.
So he was weeping
I think.
because he couldn't, he felt he couldn't serve, he couldn't satisfy Mahaprabhu because he was trying to chant Hare Krishna, worship Krishna, but he just couldn't stop thinking of Ram. And Mahaprabhu revealed, didn't he reveal to him that he's Ram?
Yes, I think that's it.
Yeah.
He showed his Sadbhuj form
To him
with
too, yeah.
Ram and Krishna and Mahaprabhu. These three personalities in his
and
Sadbhuj.
he kept notes, his diaries as Mahaprabhu's doctor, and Swarup Damodar's diaries formed a huge part of the basis of what Krishnadas Kaviraj also was writing.
But Murari
from.
Gupta has written his own Charita also on Mahaprabhu, which is not widely published in English for some reason, but that hasn't manifested so much yet. But Murari Gupta is a very transcendental Nityasiddha Parika of the Lord. And today we're remembering him and praying for his mercy and his qualities of humility, his qualities of strength also we sense in just mentioning him. We get an appreciation of his potency. So I'm honoring as much as I can.
Jai.
Murari Gupta Ki Jai.
Jai.
So we'll stop now and we're going to sing our Damodarastakam now. And you can join us at home for that. So thank you for your participation today in this first day of the Parikrama. And we've honored our Kartik Sankalpa. And we've honored especially Srila Bhakti Prajnana Kesava Maharaja. So all glories to our Kartik Parikrama and all glories to wonderful Damodarastakam. Srila Gurudev Ki Jai. Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha. Kripa Sindhavevacha. Patitanam Bhavnibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namah.
Namam Vishwaram Sachidananda Rupam Asat Kundalam Gopu Vraja-mandala Yashoda Viyolu Kalagamanam Param Visham Atyanta Dodutya Gopya Neta Yugmam Rijantam Taram Bhoja Yugmena Satanganetram Muhusvasakam Patriye Ankakanta Sita Namoda Anandam Ananda Tunde Gosvami Maharaja Prajapayantam Adiyeshu Tadyeshu Bhakayachitavam Guna Prematastam Sadhavriti Bandam Namamishwaram Satchit Ananda Rupam Lasat Kundalam Goku Vraja-mandala
Yasoda Violu Kaladavamanam Aram Visham Atyantam Udutyatopya. Next verse, 5, 5th verse. 5th verse. 5th verse. Kambojam Avyakta Nilai Yutan Kudalai Snigdha Rakshascha Gopya Mohoshuditam Bimba Rakta Dharanne Anasya Anasya Sixth verse.
Drishti Vishyati Tinam Vedano Vihadishamamaya Nijakshadishya Uverana Jomadya Mudyaiva Yadvat Vayam Moshato Bhakti Bhakti Vatapena Bhaktin Sakamai Prayacha Namo Shri Ome Sri Damodareha Namaste Ramne Swadipti Damne Vadiyodharaya Vishwasya Damne Namo Radhikaya Tvadiya Priyaya Namo Nandalilaya Devaya Punyam Namo Vijaya Pradiya Priyaya Namo Nandalilaya Devaya Punyam Namo Vishwaram Sachi Ananda Rupam Lasat Kundalam Gokule Vraja-mandalam Yasoda Viyorukaladavamanam Kodam Vishwamatyanta Hare Krishna
Offer to the picture.
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Krishna